I try very, very much to keep my comments and my opinions to myself. I get very annoyed and very frustrated when I see people who are, let's just say, musicians. And instead of doing what they do best, which is singing or playing for us and entertaining us, they take a political stand at a concert and ruin it for everybody. You just paid good money to have your good time ruined by somebody's opinion. So what I'm about to do is not an opinion, but I need to share this because I'm not sure, like many of you, I'm not sure about, listen, like the song says, I'm not sure about, or I don't know about the future. I know who holds the future, but I don't know about the future. So let me take a couple of minutes here and talk to you about something that potentially is coming later this month, and I need to do some quick explaining. I think most people know that we are headed into a change of currency. Raise your hand if you do not know this. Raise your hand if you've not heard of such a thing. Okay, there's a couple of you. So we are entering into a phase in this country, not being decided by we the people, obviously, that will make our paper money disappear and be replaced with digital currency. Other countries around the globe are doing it. The problem with this is that we are not another country, okay? The problem is we used to be the great America, the country that didn't follow but set the pace. Unfortunately, this is being pushed upon us by many of the globalists and all of the global entities. So there's really no way out of this. Now, along with that digital currency, which will be here called CBDC, and it's supposed to be announced later this month. I was surprised to read that the announcement will most likely be made on a Wednesday and not a Friday, which is normally what happens when the government wants to put something out there without anybody seeing anything. It happens on a weekend. This apparently, if the story and the dates are right, will happen in the middle of the week, late this month. And I'm not sure about exactly everything, but what I do know is the pattern is, unlike paper money, this digital currency will basically let the government know everything, and I mean everything. If you're a smoker and you go wanting to buy a pack of cigarettes, you won't be able to buy it with cash. That'll be digital currency, which means down the road, if you have an illness, for example, it will be used against you. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, I really urge you to look and investigate at how the Chinese people live. This is a prototype that has been implemented in China because, and I'm just going to say it, and please don't take offense at this, but I don't see the people of China as people who are going to push back. I do see Americans that way, though. I see Americans and the American spirit as a fighting spirit, as a spirit that always strives, usually for better. I cannot tell you with certainty, but I believe that this is not a step in the right direction for our country. I wish there was something that I could do about this, that I could change it, stop it. Not that I'm against progress, okay? If you think about it, we went from having no technology to the brilliant analog technology, which brought us into the digital age. So some transitions are really good, and some transitions are actually mandatory. You know, there's some people that still want to use the old Underwood, right? If you know what that is, you know what it is, and if you don't, sorry, I'm not going to tell you, look it up. But I'll tell you now, the typewriter, the typewriter is considered something very antiquated that people don't use when we have computers. So there is a process of moving into the future with waves of technology and things that can advance us, but this advent of digital currency poses a big problem on the church. So if you haven't already figured this one out, this church, I cannot speak for other churches, but this church has taught since Gene Scott came here in 1975, you are to do your giving in secret. It's between you and God. Now, the Bible says very clearly, you render to Caesar that which belongs to Caesar. You render to the government what belongs to the government. You pay your taxes. But what belongs to God, you give to God, and the twain shall never meet. The mistake that a lot of people make coming into the church is they would like to use the government's loopholes to make life easier, to get refunds, to get better things. And if there wasn't some other government ulterior motive, I'd say that's great, but there's always an agenda. There's never for the good simply of the people. And I'm sorry if I sound jaded, but I am. As an immigrant who came to this country with all the promises of its goodness and its grandeur, which I still believe it has, we are suffering as a divided people, not because we are filled with hate or we've been divided, deliberately divided. We've been deliberately infused with fear and with confusion. This is going to add to it, because if you understand how currency transitions occur, please, when I'm done here and when y'all go home, look up what happened in Venezuela. Before they were trying to change the currency, it would literally take a barrel full of money to buy a singular loaf of bread. And throughout every country where they've tried to implement this, it has been a nightmare. All you've got to do is look up what happened in Nigeria. All of these countries are succumbing, which means everything that happens in Europe, it takes a little while to make its way over here, but eventually it does. Don't think that because we live in California, we start all the bad things. Some of them come from elsewhere. So this digital currency poses a problem to the church, because you see, it actually goes against what we teach. What I've taught, what Dr. Scott, anybody who teaches according to this word tells you to do your giving in secret. Well, how can you give in secret if every dime that you have in your digital wallet will be accounted for by Uncle Sam and used against you if you're not being a good citizen? And I'm trying to not use words that will get me in trouble. So we have a big dilemma. And I'm warning you in advance, I may have to change the way we operate here in order to keep your privacy. And I'm trying to say this in a way that I hope you all understand. My first goal, and my most important goal, is to please God. After that is to protect you. And you may think you don't need protecting. Well, some of you just raised your hand and you're not aware of what's going on, which tells me you need somebody under shepherding you to help you figure this out. So I'm just going to tell you what might happen. I pray to God it doesn't, but it might happen this way. So I'm giving you ideas because I refuse to let the government basically expose or dive into or encroach upon what should be our God-given rights to give in secret, to worship freely. But you see, here's the problem. I have such a suspicious mind towards these things that I really believe that once this currency is implemented and everything you do is exposed, certain people in certain groups will be targeted out because of their commitments. Do you get what I'm saying? Yes. We may, and I'm just telling you, it may not happen, but if it does, I want you to brace for it. We may shift from being labeled as a church to becoming a religious institution, more school-like in nature. In fact, we do operate like that without the title. This is a learning place, and I've said that for decades. It's been said here for decades, I should say. So we may have to do that, and you may say, well, how will that keep my privacy? Well, if all people are paying tuition for courses, then it's nobody's business what you're learning except under the banner of religious education. And that will possibly keep you and those people who are participating from becoming targeted as being a Christian in this country. I guess is a big problem to a small minority of people who would like to see us all go away. So I'm trying, I'm doing my best, folks. So I don't want anybody to shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to figure this out myself. You have to remember that at the head of this organization, the tough decisions I have to make, this reminds me very much of when I decided we were going to leave downtown. Except this is what I'm talking to you about is not something that we all can decide about and discuss. This is going to be implemented whether you like it or not. Now, kind of depressing for me. I think it's depressing for anyone who actually look at the bills that still say, "In God we trust," because obviously whoever's running this country doesn't. But what I want to say to you is that it's important for the church, in whatever way, shape, or form, to continue. That means not letting the devil and his minions, in whatever form they come in, win. So I have the challenge of figuring out how to keep the church going, but how to protect you while you give and participate from not being singled out by a bunch of buffoons who cannot figure out that our Constitution, a document that birthed this country, says clearly that we have the right to these precious religious freedoms. With that includes the right to worship, to choose whatever you wish to worship. If you want to go worship Satan, that is your prerogative under that document just as much as it is to worship Christ. But what it does do in this implementing is it does infringe upon our ability to function as we previously or as we have been. So if I announce changes to you in the way things are done, and I'm asking you to listen to the tone of my voice and what you see here in my sincerity. I am worried about other stuff. I'm worried about people who would become so frightened that they can't figure out that the people of this country are much greater than the people who profess to be serving this country, and I'm talking about our government.
To this house, magnify the Lord, lift up holy hands, our hearts in one accord, worship and bow down.